Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the lab. Thank you so much for stopping by. Good morning, Viol. Thank you so much for stopping by. Oh yes, I've almost goofed as I did the last time. Oh. Uh-oh. Oh no, I appear to have broken something. What a surprise. All right. How are y'all doing? Do I have this? Changes? I don't. Okay. GG. Yeah, that's a lot. Holy shit. GG minus N5. Yeah, there we go. Let me go ahead and swap over to the code view. Okay, so it's actually not in here. Interesting. So today I'm going to kind of take a step back from the testing crusade that I am currently on, and I'm going to instead make a couple of changes to the code base. Basically, some simplifications is the goal, at least. I was originally going to wait until I had a much larger test suite to do this, but I think that it's in a good state right now where we could have some semblance of confidence in such changes, and on top of that, it'll be relatively easy to tell whether or not we break things. So I'm gonna go for it. Let's see here, doing good. Finish with the little uni stuff I want to do today. Now Hollow Knight and later Dark Souls 2. Oof. I would say sounds like a fun day, but ooh, Dark Souls 2. I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. I've been doing a lot of Python, like a lot of Python. Trying to build that skill set up as much as I possibly can before I start the new gig. So there's a couple of features specifically that I wanted to dig into. So I am going to move these back down, and today I'm probably gonna focus on two things, maybe. Let's see. So number one is simplify pluggable, and the second one possibly will be the add expiring keys for the file ledger, to be determined. Maybe I can help you with the Python exercises. I am definitely very, very what's the phrase? What did I use? Begintermediate. Like, I have all these concepts in my head, these more intermediate / advanced concepts from programming in general, and then I look at Python and I look at the Python syntax and I just kind of go, I turn into a literal spooky derp. That's still going good. Good. Okay. So go ahead and pop it here. And I think I did. I thought I had this somewhere. Ledger type goes into file is ledger file. Yes, okay. So I did start down this path already. But I guess we'll kind of go here. There we go. and technically this is actually not going to work. So I started down the path of the expiring file keys, or expiring ledger file, and I started down that path for a number of reasons. The biggest one being the blunder from the last stream, recognizing that the source of all of that concern about the bot having bugs on the greeter and all that fun was really just because I had the ledger file just kind of hanging out. That bothers the crap out of me. So what I tried to do was I tried to add this function called ledger file. So inside of our ledger factory, the case for file is now ledger file to ledger.txt. And if this fails, then huzzah. Now the problem that I've run into, that originally I tried to do the kind of what is supposed to be the cross-platform approach, which is os.stat. And os.stat returns a struct called file info, which file info basically has a couple of has a couple of fields on it. So this will be things like stats dot, is it a directory? When was the modification time? File mode, name, size, etc., etc. Well, that's what I was trying to use. And what I was trying to do is I was trying to use the mod time. This is not as good as something like a create time. I think it's a C time. But C time is not cross-platform. At least not very cross-platform. I had some issues with trying to do something that was C time related in Linux and then swapping over to Mac. It just said no. So there's some options here. The other thing that I was considering too is the possibility of just making this be a Docker file and a Docker container, and just forcing the issue of it being a Docker container. Right now, we've kind of gotten cozy with the process of just source the token file and then go run main.go, which is all well and good for local testing, and it's actually very convenient for local testing, except for the flags, which I just found out yesterday, day before yesterday or so, that I actually shouldn't be running certain things in certain streams. So in order to be a little more diligent about that and to make sure that I don't accidentally run features in streams that I don't want to, or that aren't wanted, then I need some kind of configuration that will allow me to start the bot and load those features as I desire them. Now the question becomes, do I do that in config? Do I do that in the Docker file? Many possibilities. And all of that just centers around this idea of expiring keys for the file ledger. So, let me pause there for a moment to caffeinate, because it was a very long night. Oh, that reminds me. Reminds me, I meant to do that. So, how am I going to do this? Because something else that I was considering as part of the ledger was making this a little bit smarter. The challenge to making it smarter is that it is more or less type specific. So the thought of making it smarter was that the map, instead of just being a map of string to integer, which it actually could still be an integer, this could be a map of string to some complex type. So it'd be something like a type ledger entry, or we could just say entry struct. And then inside of here, you would have data that is necessary to you. So value is something, and then epoch, for example, could be something that we go for. So that's one option. Alternatively, the cache could just be a map of string to N64, where N64 is the epoch, which for let me clear those out. Which for anybody that's not familiar, epoch is effectively a count in seconds, milliseconds, whatever the measurement may be, from a certain date in time in the past, which is usually the Unix epoch, January 1st, 1970, to the current time. That's usually what we consider an epoch in here. And that is something that we could do, is we could make the value side of the map the epoch, which that key was created. And then what we can do is inside of the map, as we are loading this data, loading the data becomes a little more complex, just barely, where we would read the username, comma, or some type of separator, probably something like a comma or a pipe or a non-printable character, always good, and then the timestamp that it was created. And then from that timestamp, we can just do some basic math. Is this entry older than whatever our threshold is? If so, then don't add that key into the map. Can't really do anything about this piece here. But then we would have to reconcile the deletions as well. So that is a much more complex implementation than I was necessarily prepared to do. But it's possible. And the last piece is that if I were to think about doing that more complex approach, what I would effectively have to do is the factory would read from that source, format the data, format the map into the form that it wants, and then it would immediately have to write that data back out to the file. So if, for example, we have 12 keys and we invalidate 7 of them, well, we have to write those remaining keys back out to the file as, yes, these are valid keys, and then clear out the rest. So, sorry, my cat is just like, she's like trying to get underneath her bowl. Come here. No? You want to come say hi? How rude. She's like trying to dig her face underneath her food bowl. I guess because she thinks that there's more food under there? I don't know. And also just for context, I'm mostly explaining this idea, not because I necessarily believe that it is the right way to go, but more that I'm just kind of running the idea through paces and trying to see if there are any caveats to that approach. And of course, if anybody has any caveats to the approach, do let me know. Lippy girl. So that's a lot of work. But it would automate things, which is really nice. Alternatively, on the Docker side, let me see here. All right, because there was the step of go mod. channel Nick, and then this doesn't have this actually doesn't have any of the configuration for those bits either. Okay. Options. So the other thing too that I was thinking about was things like this. So on a per channel basis, we could basically do something like that. Alternatively, we could, and some of the other things too that I was messing around with was like things like greeter and raid are turned on here, but they're not turned on, or they're turned on here, but gifts, subs, bits, etc. is not turned on. And so there's also some default values that that we have to consider as well. There's a part of me that is starting to lean towards making the file ledger a little more sophisticated, if you will. Yeah. So this is the file right now. It's just basically just names. We could make that smarter. We can make that smarter, and I feel like that makes sense. I feel like that makes sense to do, just in general. And then technically we could enable the file ledger, and the file ledger running in Docker could do more or less the same thing. Yeah, I think that makes sense. The last kind of justification that that ran through my head. Oh my goodness, hold on. Cat is like, I don't know what she thinks that an empty food bowl is going to give her. Girl. All right, I can't not. So, bowls are up there. There we go. So the bowls are up there. She's right there, and she is desperately trying to figure out how to get those bowls and how to force those bowls to produce food. All right. I think I'm gonna go with the approach of for the file ledger. So let's see here. Let me write a quick comment. Mod time and C time not vary. Step 1, get bowls. Step 2, Step 3, is it profit though? Because technically you're just getting an empty bowl. I mean, technically you have profited in the sense that you now have an empty bowl, which is fair. Not cross-platform. On time and C time not cross-platform. So then for this, we're going to do add epoch timestamp to keys in file, and then have ledger read expire on read. Okay. So now, will that also work for Redis? That should work for Redis. Actually, we wouldn't have to worry about it for Redis, because everything that we're doing right now is for the file. Whereas in Redis, we just add the expiring key as we go. yeah. I do need to... Oh, I need to lift that that configuration up. Okay. We'll come back to that. Because I'm more or less standardized around the idea of 12-hour expiration. So I'll probably move that into config at some point. All right, so we've got a separator. We've got a couple of things here. Hey, welcome to the lab, Rock. How you doing, mate? Thanks so much for stopping by. Sure, that's not insanely loud. All right, so hiding the cache from the reader. Let's see here. Initial expiration. More work on the greetings persistence? Exactly. Basically, we're going to add some expiration keys to the file ledger. And I was kind of debating on where I wanted to do that, and decided to just do it here inside of file ledger. We're just going to add an epoch timestamp onto everything. To ensure, what's the phrase that I'm looking for? To ensure we remove stale data, we rewrite. Will this be per file or per key? Per key. So, yeah, let me write this out and then I can summarize. To ensure we remove stale data, we rewrite state to the ledger, and then basically this will just be a what is this? Overwrite ledger with cache. And we can actually, we'll put this here. Func overwrite ledger. Oh, we ledger cache. So then this is going to be ledger, which is an io.read writer, and this is the cache, which is a map string int. And that should be okay. Yeah, that should be okay. So the key is the username and the value is the timestamp? Exactly. Which might necessitate changing this value type. I think this might need to be an N64. I think that might need to be N64. I can't remember. Let's see. Time.epoch. I don't remember. Epoch time. Time.now, now.unix. Time.now.unix.unix nano. What precision? There you go. It's depending on which one you use. So now.unix is seconds and now.unix nano is nanoseconds. So we would just be using seconds because we don't really need precision for this. Note that there is no Unix milli, so you have to divide by blah to get the milliseconds. Fair. Yeah, okay. So time.now.unix. So time.now.unix returns an N64. Okay. Fantastic. we are going to have to do some math, which is going to be interesting. So now this needs to become time.now.unix. And let me actually add a comment here. File ledger is a in-memory cache backed by a file system file. Note, the map is map username Unix epoch seconds to account for expiring keys. Just call that out explicitly that N64 is just a time sense, and technically we could do like we could do a type alias. We could do something like type expiration time as N64, but I don't typically like doing that personally. All right, so down here we still have our read all. Now as part of the hydrate cache, this needs to be see here, separator. This is line separator. I'm gonna call that out explicitly. Line separator, and then field separator is, it could be comma for right now. I might do that a little bit later. So actually we need to change this to score line. And then we want to do strings.split line by line separator. And then so this is tokens equals, and then we'll do a quick sanity check. If len tokens is, tokens does not equal to 2, log.printf error invalid ledger line. This would be %s line. Continue. So we'll basically just treat that perhaps as a Vim has no rename variable function. It technically does, or I should say COC technically does, but I'm a scrub and I don't use it. Nope, that shouldn't be line separator. That should be field separator. Otherwise, cache token 0 equals tokens 1. COC is actually the one that has the rename function. It's actually really good. I remember what RR. No wonder. That is not how I would do that. So we're just gonna exit out of that, bring that back here, and then source that. Oh geez, I hate when it does that. There we go. And ledger file. Variable type string. Right, so we need this to be strings.a or strconv.a2i. So one. And the problem is that is a to I is there like an a to I Golang a2i print 64? It's if they knew. A to I have a bit size. Turns the whitest type float 64, N64, and UN64. Huh. Equivalent to parseInt S10.0. Let me see parseInt. ParseInt is probably what I need. Yeah. ParseInt interprets a string based on a given value and returns the corresponding value. The base argument is 0. The true base is implied by the string's prefix. That's kind of handy. I am not going to use that feature, but interesting. strcom.parseInt is actually what we do. So instead of a to I, this would be parseInt token 0, base 10, and 64 bits in size. So, and we do need to plonk, yoink. Yes. So I error equals if error is equal to nil. Log.printf error invalid timestamp for key. This would be %d. Would be tokens 0. And actually, we can since this is a string. So what we're effectively doing is we're adding the logic for parsing this out. And I think yeah, I think that's okay. So we, instead of using a to I, strcomp.a to I, which is what we would normally use, because we need an N64 from this, we have to use parseInt instead. And since parseInt can potentially fail in some capacity, we do like so. N64 is just a long. I hesitated to say yes because I think in most languages the answer is yes. It's a 64-bit long integer, which is usually what I would expect a long to be represented as. But some languages, I believe, don't honor that. I believe. Line separator, field separator is also a string. So like that, we can change that. Line separator is line separator. Field separator is field separator. Yeah. And in Java terms, I believe Java terms, it is the equivalent of an N64. which I love saying fast because sometimes it makes it sound like I'm saying in 64, and then I get nostalgic. How's the Kuda Bowl going? Well, it appears she gave up. Chomp, chomp. Hey, put that claw away. Good girl. You may be biting me, but at least you're not clawing me. You know what? That's a win in my book. Good girl. Kind of chunked a little hard there, but that's okay. Does Go support unsigned in and unsigned operations? Yes. So instead of an int 64, you would prefix it with a U. So uint 64 is an unsigned 64-bit integer. And just to show that there, so you got uint, which I think for the most part it's platform dependent, but it's usually an int32 or a uint32. But then you've got smaller options like uint 8, uint 16, 32, and 64. You have smaller options. If you needed to be very like memory conscious. So like this value must take 8 bytes only, or 8 bits only, sorry. Then you can specify that. And very handy for things like embedded Go, as far as I'm aware. But for the typical application that's running on a web server, never be that clever, because you're probably not going to be. That's what I miss with Java. Yeah. I think the closest that Java has are like those boxed wrappers. So you can do things, with BigInt, or some of the math libraries, like the external math libraries give you that functionality. It's a shame. Because it's not like sized values don't exist in the underlying C implementation. So to expose that to the bytecode compiler didn't seem too terrible, but then again, I didn't write it. I didn't write the virtual machine, the JVM. Okay, so let me do actually, you know what? We're gonna make this just a little bit more readable. So this is gonna be username, and then tokens, username, and then this is a timestamp. No, we do want to keep that as tokens1, and then this goes like that, just to make it a little bit cleaner in terms of readability. Instead of reading token 0, tokens 1, and having to remember what token 0 and tokens 1 represents, instead you can just get something like this. All right, so at this point, to ensure we remove stale data, we overwrite the ledger. And we will make this a synchronous call. That does really suck. You know what? No. This will not be synchronous. This will be asynchronous, or this will be a concurrent. So once we have that cache, we have the ledger, we have the cache. The ledger will get returned as is, which is fine, because this is just a reference to the handle. This is the current state of the cache. So don't add invalid lines, and don't add keys that are expired. So do something like that. All right. And lastly, we do this. So for underscore, or actually this will be KV. So username timestamp equals range of cache. We shouldn't really have to do anything special here, so I think we can just do a ledger dot write. Well, let's see here. So the line would be fmt.sprintf. Excuse me. And this will be %s. Oh yeah, we need to pass the separator. You know what? I've got an idea. Something that I think I want to do. Return file ledger nil. I'm gonna make that a method. So, and instead of calling it overwrite ledger, I'm gonna call it flush cache. So flush cache, very similar to really just any language that has the idea of flushing flushing a cache. Yeah, okay, so we got to do that. And then we do byte byte of line. Ledger, this would be L. Do it like that. And then this would be L.cache. Yes. So this would be username, L.field separator, timestamp, and then we also need the line separator. So this is just going to be like a really ugly string, a really ugly sprintf. But then we end up with this. Now, is this still complaining about something? Oh, this is l.ledger.write. Okay. Let's see here. So flush goes through the entire cache and removes stale data. Technically speaking, flush is kind of like an overwrite. Which the more that I'm thinking about this, the more that I'm going, oh shit. So in a nutshell, flush is when you have an in-memory version of a more persistent data store. Flush literally just means take the state that's in memory and flush it to that store as is. Whether or not there's reconciliation on that process or not is kind of up to the implementation. But for this specific implementation, it would literally just be overwrite the file and then write out the current state of the cache. Write the current state of the cache to that, in this case, to the file. Now, what is this complaining about? Undeclared name line separator L dot separator. Oh. The problem is that we are not really doing that right now, because the ledger in this case, new ledger type is a file, and for the file, this is not going to work, unfortunately. Yeah.
So, how are you holding up? Because I'm a potato.
Thank you so much for the 3-month subscription, Nintendo. Holy shit.
So, how are you holding up? Because I'm a potato.
Thank you so much for the raid, Nintendo, and welcome, Raiders. Welcome to the lab. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'm very happy to see that the auto shoutout is working. Oh my goodness. So we got a sub from Nintendo, we got a raid from Nintendo. Hello, Shara. Hello, Horror. Hello. It did a reverse raid? What? All the peoples. Thank you so much for stopping by, everybody. Welcome. How we all doing today? Yeah, Cam. Honey girl. Oh, you're like right. Chomp, 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 chomp. With the little cross paws. Those claws away. You know better. Oh, she actually got me really good. That hurts, little girl. No, ma'am. Yep. All right. Hop down. No, not with her. Because this would be that version where if the monkey held up the lion and the lion just turned around and immediately started swiping. Pretty sure monkey would lose a paw. Which would not be ideal, personally. Yes, Horror, that was Zelda. Tilly. Tilly. I just heard Tilly. But she is gone. Oh well. Alrighty. Alright. I think we are going to need that really hurt, little girl. I think we are going to need the os.file explicitly in the file ledger instead of an IO reader. Because I think I am going to need hello, Tilly. I think I am going to need the extra bits. Tilly. I don't know if you can hear it, but she's just yowling in the background. Tilly. Tilly. Oh, hello. Hi. You know, fat girl. If I can get her. Oh, there she is. Tilly. Hi. Big girl. Can't really pick her up. Oh, she let me. Pretty girl. Can you say hi? Can you say hi to everybody? No? Alright. She doesn't like to be picked up. You're too fat for that. You hear that, Bean? You're too fat for that. Alright. So with the file, with the actual file, what I need... Precious Beans. That's why I call her Bean.
who made it into this thing.
Ganavan Benane? I feel like I messed that up, but thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to the lab. Digital lab coats will be available upon request. However, we cannot guarantee that they will actually fit because after being mauled by my cats, I'm not exactly very good at the whole digital sewing thing. So thank you so much for stopping by. Excuse me. Yes, we need a function for that, I think. We're gonna need a function, and this function is going to return a line. And for the line, we're going to take a username and a timestamp. Username, which is a string, a timestamp, which is an N64. And this is going to do this logic. So this will be timestamp, because I'm going to need that logic in a couple of places. This will return a string. Byte, l.line, username, and timestamp. Oh. There. So now I've got the line function. Line function just returns line returns a string representation of a formatted ledger line. And then this is going to be actually change in boop l.line again for key and ds equals time.now.unix timestamp, and this equals timestamp. Like that. Alrighty. So now that should be okay. Excuse me. Did we ever figure out how the encoding for writing to a file is decided? It's UTF-8 by default, which most of Go is UTF. Is it UTF-8 or UTF-16? At a bare minimum, I'm pretty sure it's UTF-8 by default. And then everything else would be if you were explicitly stating that you wanted some standard other than UTF-8 or UTF-16. Is there anything that I need to do here? I don't think so. So what we're going to need to do is l.ledger. No, I don't think so. What's a good way of doing that? Golang OS file. Overwrite?
Lurking now, don't mind me, hope you're having a break. Major the one, if not let me know who's in charge. We need to talk Boonib one raid.
Thank you so much for the 10 bits, Drybones. I appreciate it. Holy shit, and thank you for the lurk. Thank you so much for stopping by. Let's use truncate of 0 and write it to... Oh, right, because truncate will rewrite the size. It'll rewrite the size to something. If I truncate it to 0, then that is effectively... truncate 0 clears the file contents, So first we truncate, and then we write each of these entries in the cache to the file. And voila! Is there a ledger.write all? There's not. Write string, actually. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. Write string would prevent me from having to do an extra cast, which I am keen on. Yeah. And then I think write string is literally doing the same thing. In that case, I will keep it as write with byte, just on the off chance that that I do want to change back to an IO reader for any reason. It'll be an easier change to do that way. All right. It does feel like this needs to be concurrent, but we'll go from there. Hey, good morning, Spooky. Thank you so much for stopping by. Welcome to the lab. How you doing? Double check on time. So let's see here. Flush cache, and the other thing too here is that I'm not exposing the flush cache method outside because I really don't want that method to be called anywhere other than here. Just coming back from an engagement party. Ooh, that's exciting. Engagement party for friend/family. Just how morning is it for me? It is currently 7:18 a.m. So we started somewhere around 6:18, I think. An hour and 5, so yeah, too far off. In fact, line actually does not need to be exported. I actually don't want line to be exported. L.line. L.line. Why am I awake at 6 a.m. on a Saturday? I'm usually awake at like 5:30 a.m. every day. The difference of week versus weekend doesn't really apply to me anymore. I used to, long time ago, I used to be very kind of like zonal about the week. But so during the week, Monday to Friday, it would be, call it like an 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Or 11 p.m., somewhere around that realm. And then on the weekend, it would be just stupid hours. But when I started working, it was a lot easier for me to just get into a routine. And the routine just ended up being earlier and earlier and earlier. And it got earlier because of commuting to work. So it kind of was one of those, like, I got really tired of sitting in traffic for an hour plus every morning to go to work. This was pre-corona, of course. And so I just got up earlier and earlier. And I got to the point where my commute was actually cut down almost in half just by getting up earlier. And that just kind of stuck with me. Let's see here. So is there anything else that I need to do here? Split by separator. And then split each entry by field separator. Don't add invalid lines. Don't add keys that are expired. Oh yeah, we actually have to do the timestamp comparison. So let's see here. Golang time compare. I don't I compare times, but it's not technically times because it would be epoch. So yeah, so I would need a Golang time.duration from epoch. Yes. How to convert to Unix time to time.time? It is time.unix. Oh, okay, so it is literally just the reverse. Cool. This returns the local time corresponding to the gimmick to unit time. And C70 UTC. Perfect. Is valid past and sex range. Not all sec values have a corresponding time value. One such value is the largest N64. Huh. Yeah, it's fair. Let's see here. If you go by bike, you are largely unaffected by commutes. That is a 36-mile commute. And no matter how in shape I may have been at the time, which is long gone at this point, I could not have biked that. I am one of those people that I worked in the city, but I lived outside of the city. Because Medj don't like living in the city. And since epochs are just N64s, why not just subtract them and then divide by an amount? Mostly for readability, if you will. So if I did something like time.unix, let's see here. So if I did this, and then I can say before time dot now dot was it sub? No, because I had to do something like this, if I remember correctly. Oh, hello. What happened here? And actually, now the question is, which is more readable? So 12 hours ago equals be in this dink flunk, and then timed up before 12 hours ago, or oh yeah, so this was yeah, no, timed up. So if timed up before 12 hours ago, then continue. If this makes, actually, let me poll this. I'm curious. Commuting time beyond 20 minutes is unacceptable to me. I don't want to spend much more of my free time de facto for work. It's kind of fair. That's one of the reasons why I pushed so hard to stay in the remote world, because no commute, and no commute is good life. Commuting for an hour a day for a job that I work 8 hours a day. Well, actually, not even an hour a day. So my commute was an hour one way because I was going into the city. So 2 hours spent on commuting. Call it 7 hours of actual work because of I would usually leave like an hour early to account for the commute. And yeah, it was kind of wild to think about. let's see here. Timestamp greater than 12 hours in milliseconds. Okay. So you would be... This would still be... This would still be the line for 12 hours ago. So... Let's see here. So if I wrote it out as... what is it? Line... and then we could probably put this as line timestamp equals time.unix timestamp 0. All right, let's see here. Okay. Let me think about this. I definitely see it. Probably someone for home office. I don't like having to drive to work more. I feel like that's starting to become a very common theme. That idea of like, why go into an office? Why spend the time? Why create the pollution? And why? Well, I say spend the time. Why waste the time? Let's call it what it is. Why waste the time commuting into an office when you don't need to be in an office? And then to Spooky's point, like if you have, now this is assuming that you have a home office set up. Not everybody does. So caveat there that not everybody sets up their workstation like we do. But if you are somebody that can do that, you can get your monitor preference, you can get your kind of microphone and camera preference, your seat preference, your desk preference. Like you can literally create a personalized space that is meant to be as efficient for you as possible. Why wouldn't you? And on top of that, that means that the company wouldn't have to spend money on as large of an office space to accommodate it. If anything, maybe like a small space for people to get together if they need to, but treat that as the exception, not the norm. Me too, Spooky. Just in general, I'm less productive at work. When I'm here, like it feels like I'm separated, and so I can, like, my brain can focus on the work that I'm doing. Whereas when I'm at work, I get easily distracted by things like people's conversations, loud noises. I think I'm what's the term? Is it agoraphobic? The person that has basically not phobic, but I have a strong sensitivity to the sound of people eating. Specifically like people that eat with their mouth open. Like that sound just grates on me. And things like that just distract me far too easily. So my own personal space, most productive. Okay, so, and I think I see what you mean, Rock. Now that I'm kind of going through this whole process. So more or less we would want something like expiration is an int, and then down here we would have our expiration is 1,000 times 60. Oops. times 12, which is 12 hours. And really, this needs to be a configuration. Actually, just go ahead and make it an expiration. Key expiration time is an int. So key expiration time, do that. And then for this, we wouldn't have to do that. We wouldn't have to do that. So we would just do, oops, if timestamp is see here. You also like to sit cross-legged? You mean like this? I just do that. I do that all the time. Whenever I'm working, I tend to lean back into my chair, cross my legs, move closer to the desk, and I kind of get into this motion, which is not particularly great for back muscles. So we still need 12 hours ago equals time.now .unix minus key expiration time, or this, we wouldn't know that it's 12 hours ago, so this would be expiration time. So if timestamp is less than expiration time, then continue. Yeah. Who doesn't like it? That maybe? So then key expiration time is also an N64. And by being an N64, that allows us to do that. Yeah, you know what? I agree with that, Rock. This was more concise. Oh yeah. It's like sometimes it's pins and needles, sometimes it feels like small spheres are running down your veins. Ugh. I know that feeling. Valid entry. Add to the cache. Yeah, spooky. I do that thing, and I actually just did this morning. So I have a bad tendency to lift my arm above my shoulder, which is apparently not good for the muscle that's in here. And then I fall asleep on it. So not only is my shoulder getting pinched, but then my elbow is getting rotated backwards. And I wake up in the morning and it's like, this arm is not going to be good today. You know what, actually, we've been sitting down for a long period of time, so speaking of Rock. Oh, time to stand. Time to stand, time to move. Time to stand, time to move, time to groove. Let's bring that down just a little bit. that's not there. Alrighty. Welcome to the Conversation Sorcery. Thanks so much for stopping by. There. All right. Let me double check this logic. So, for each line, split the line by field separator. Double check the length because we don't want panics on. Don't know why I did that. Fun. We have parse out for the username, parse for the timestamp, expiration time is then math, timestamp is less than expiration time, continue, and we just continue in each of these cases. We don't write out invalid data. Valid entry, add to the cache, and then we return the file ledger after we flush the cache. And then flush the cache is simply truncate the file to 0, truncate the file to size 0 is more or less what that means. And then for username timestamp equals range l.cache, ledger.write. We could also, instead of doing ledger.write, we could just do an l.add. Oh, no, we can't. No, we can't. Because l.add generates the timestamp. Which we don't want to do. So, okay. Cool. And then line just returns. Line returns a string representation of a formatted ledger line. Perfect. All right. Now I need to go back to main because I'm pretty sure. Yep. Con declared but not used. That's something that we'll do later. Time imported but not used. And too few arguments. Yeah. How did I do? Oh, I didn't. That's right, I didn't. Key expiration time is an N64. So this is going to add key expiration time. Seeing that printf to concatenate strings makes my brain hurt. Probably because you're not used to seeing it. Would be my guess. Oh, am I gonna sneeze? Excuse me. I've literally watched printfs I've used printfs for a long time. But yeah, when I first saw them, they made my brain hurt. I couldn't internalize the %s, %d. You can concatenate those together, and then That took a little while for me to really internalize. But once I internalized it, now it's like second nature. Yes, and then for here, we're also going to pass in key expiration time. So here, key expiration time is an int 64. Expiration time is an int 64. Key expiration time. Does that mess with anything? Yes. So ds to do get from config, and then expiration time equals times 60 times 60 times 12. So this is 12 hours. And then we pass that in as expiration time. Okay. I'm just thinking the work the poor CPU has to do to find and replace all those tokens compared to just creating a new string. Fun fact, Rock, there is no difference in time. Concatenation of strings versus the formatting of strings in the way that you're describing, there's no difference. Yep. That was a study that was done. I think the article is still floating around somewhere, basically comparing the various states of string concatenation, with the exception of just raw byte interpolation. Yeah, it's as little as makes no difference. Now, to somebody that would be writing like embedded code where every single CPU cycle is important, then yes, there is a difference. There's a difference in the sense of like 4 CPU cycles versus 2 CPU cycles, for example. But the differences are so negligible that most developers working on regular code have no business trying to optimize it. Bam! Saturday morning. And sorry, I misspoke earlier. There is no noticeable difference. The difference is so negligible except in performance-sensitive operations. So that should be fine, I think. Once you get started with JMH, you try to micro-optimize everything. I'm gonna reword that just a little bit. Once you get started with JMH, you become a liability. Whoosh. No, but really, don't micro-optimize everything. You will be a bane on the development team. However, I will say, learning JMH and learning how to actually recognize where the hotspots in the code are is a fantastic skill to have. And I think it's a skill that not enough developers have. But if you start using JMS as an excuse to write super clever code to micro-optimize a tiny procedure, and you make the code more complex, you're more of a liability to the code base than you are helping the code base. With the one exception, again, of performance-optimized or performance-sensitive applications, which most projects that aren't in the embedded space, high-frequency trading, or something that literally has like a time requirement in the nanoseconds, you probably have no reason to optimize that way. And I end that whole segment with Medge's opinion. So as with everything, take that with a grain of salt. Do I really need to precede these? I don't think I need to precede tmi.twitch.tv anymore. I can get rid of that one, I think. In the best case, I shaved off like 80% of a service function that gets called like 1 million times a month. Perfect. That right there is hotspot recognition. Hotspot identification and rectification, which is, that's exactly the scenario that I'm talking about. That is using a tool to find the actual hot path of your code, which is a skill that I wish more developers had. Okay. I think this is doable. So let me rmledger.txt and go run. See if we get in there. Invalid ledger line of empty. That's okay. So I apologize in advance. The bot's probably about to just blow everybody up with greetings. So Please excuse. And Peter PF. Okay. So we got our ledger. Hey, there we go. Brrr. Look at how fast that. Well, I say fast, but that's just a second precision, so. Nice. Okay. So, now if I were to... If I were to change this to... Is that enough time? I'm pretty sure that's enough time. Close that out. Go run. Rock, can I get another message from you real quick? This is something that I would really like to write a test for. No, I cannot. Sad day. Okay, so that part didn't work. Okay, let me get, woof. Oh yeah, okay. Ledger. Aronildo, thank you so much for stopping by. Welcome to the lab, mate. Okay, so I need log.printf, adding %d, or %s, d, to the cache, and this is username and timestamp. Like that. Like that. Bada boop. Aha. So Rock, you actually did still get added. So I think I need to just send that backwards just a little bit further. And I'm also recognizing that there is one other piece that I would need to do to make this truly resilient. Yeah, there you are. So we're just gonna cut that down by a whole unit. Hey. Abnormal closure. Oh no. There we go. Okay. So that part appears to be working. We didn't get didn't get any of that. Source and go run. There we go. Okay. So, two things that I see that I need to do. So if len line less than equal to 1, continue. So basically skip empty lines. Are there a strings dot empty? No. That's okay. I am a variable. Damn right you are. Let's see here. So skip empty lines, then split. Don't add invalid lines, which technically would have worked with the backwards compatibility side of things, which is great. I just didn't test it. Don't add keys that are expired. And then that's a valid entry. And then we flush the cache. The cache was actually doing the truncation, which was fantastic. Ledger gets larger with every message, not every unique user. Not necessarily, no. So, and this is actually something that I need to add here. Ooh. Ooh, that's very interesting. Uh-huh. Okay. What's the phrase I'm looking for? On the initial load, it does a couple of things. Excuse me. But on initial load, it's just reading from the ledger, seeing who was in there, and then off you go. And then every interaction from there on forward is if you are absent from the ledger, then you get added. If you are what is the word? If you are absent from the ledger, then you get added. If you weren't absent from the ledger, then yeah. I was just very confused why there were suddenly duplicate names in the file. That's because of the main startup. So I don't really have the concept of an ignore list. I'm doing an ignore by basically by just adding names into the file. Oops, like that. EF ledger. So the duplicates are the things that that I add manually. So like MedLabs, for example, technically got added twice because of the what you call it? MedLabs got added twice because of the logic in main, which is like, oh, don't add the channel, don't add this thing, which also happens to be added, that happens to be set to MedLabs. Like channel and Nick are the same thing. Add those two together. And I think there was also something like don't add the bot. Do I need tissues? No, my ear is doing that thing again, where it feels like I'm underwater and I can hear myself talking and it's bothering me. I'm trying to ignore it, but now that I've acknowledged it. Yeah, here you go. So in this particular case, Nick and channel are the exact same name. So what actually, you know what I could do, and what I probably should do, how complex do I want this to be? I don't think I want it to be too complex. Okay. So there's another thing that I need to do here. L ledger, or not ledger, file ledger. Expired. Expired checks if the given key is let's see. Stamp is beyond the expiration threshold. So in a nutshell, I'm going to move the logic here. I'm going to move that down here. And then what I need is key, or what is it? Entry, okay, equals L dot cache key. If not okay, return false, or we should say return true. And then If entry is less than, continue, return true. Otherwise, return false. So, let me actually comment this out. So, if the key doesn't even exist, it is considered expired, technically speaking. And the logic there is that I'm going to be using this as a check for whether or not an entry can be added. I think that's right. Now I'm starting to second guess myself. Aha. But so the logic here of if expiration time is greater than l.expiration, return true, is expired. Otherwise, return false, not expired. So but then I just realized that that technically doesn't do what I wanted to do. So I need this in two different capacities. Number one, I need it here, where the logic of, is this an expired timestamp, yes or no? That's one possibility. The other possibility was inside of absent, because absent doesn't necessarily mean for a file whether or not it's there. It also technically means is this value, it also means I have to compare the timestamps. So maybe I just make this simpler. Yeah, maybe I just make this simpler. If entry timestamp is less than blah, return true. And you know what, I could just return entry timestamp less than expiration time. Okay, so let's clean this up just a little bit. I'm changing this, so entry timestamp is an int64. And then we come up here. Return not okay. Or actually, no, this would be an and. And expired entry. Yeah. Actually, let me make this consistent. Entry timestamp. Oh, l.expired. Do something like that. So the absent check becomes two-phase. Actually, that wouldn't work. That wouldn't work. I think it would have to be an or. Yeah, I think it would have to be an or. So, two cases for absence. Either the key just doesn't exist in our cache, which is valid, or that entry is expired. And if either of those two conditions are true, then it's considered to be an absent key. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure that I necessarily want to flush the cache on every add, because that would not be particularly performant. So when would I want to do that? Probably set that up on like a timer, something like every 30 seconds or so. Flush the cache to disk, which is valid. I don't think I have to necessarily. Okay, so there's another thing that that I have to consider here. Well, actually no, because absent is almost immediately followed by an add key, and if you add a particular key, then that's just going to overwrite the entry as it goes, which is perfectly fine, I think. So yeah, I think that's okay. This is where you run into the crux of file persistence. Unless you use a custom file type, you'll need to rewrite the entire thing each time. Technically. And I could also set this up actor style. I don't think that's really necessary, though. But that would be interesting. And just to say it, I could also just do something like this. So go func. So time dot after. So you could do a for select case receive from time dot after every 10 times time dot second. Doing something like that. Then I could do file ledger dot flush. Whoa, I don't know what it did there. What actually is doing? Oh, that's fantastic. Flush. Oh, did I just call it? Wait. Oh, right. Nope, this is a scoping issue. Ledger is a pointer to file ledger. And in here you pass file ledger. I think Vim is very confused. Huh. That's very interesting. There we go. So I could set up something like this, which is basically I flush the cache, and then I create a go routine, and that go routine's job is just flush the cache all the time. So basically for infinity, select time.after 10.time.second. So every 10 seconds, flush the cache, which is not terrible. It's a lot. But then again, 10 seconds is eternity in a lot of these. So yeah, we could do something like this. Set up file or set up cache flushing. And an important thing here to note is that just because file ledger exists here, the scope of this go routine does not actually nest inside of this function. So in order for us to actually get access to the ledger, we have to pass that ledger in as a function argument. So when we do a kind of an anonymous function like this, it ensures that you receive a valid link or a valid reference to the file ledger. Let's see here. File persistence is only really in case of crashes. So if you regroup people within past 10 seconds, such case isn't really that bad. Exactly. And even that would be like mostly on like really high volume channels, which I don't connect the bot to any of those. But even on high volume channels, yeah, we may have, we may regreet a chunk of people over the span of 10 seconds, but who cares? Because those messages will just be lost anyway. Make it 0.1 second. 1/10 of a second. Oh god. And then you start to wonder why your disk IO just goes. Okay. So, with an occasional flush, with an occasional persist to cache, absent is now checking if the key is either absent completely, like not existing in the cache, or it's an expired entry. And there is an additional piece here that I was considering doing, but I think add kind of takes care of that. Since we do an absent, then add, if you call absent and then call a subsequent add, then this is perfectly fine, I think. It would be kind of nice to not have duplicates in that file. So we could have something like what do we want to call this? Like an add if absent, which would kind of be the same logic. It would just be a helper, if you will. Or we could call it ignore. So we could do something like this. File ledger ignore. Nah, that's too specific. That's too specific. Because the ledger does not have any concept of username. Nah. So, same thing here. This actually shouldn't be username. This should be rename. We want to rename this to just key. By the way, there was the variable rename, Rock. Boop. Ta-da. Rename. I had it on leader RR instead of leader RN, which didn't make sense to my brain, so I remapped it to leader RN, and now I have rename again. So maybe now I'll actually use it. Maybe. Yeah, I think this is okay. I think this is okay the way that it is. Oops, I didn't even do the thing. Gonna head out. Plan not to go outside between now and Christmas because of Corona, so see you around. Thank you so much for stopping by, Rock. I appreciate you being here. And we will see you next time. Which I think next time would potentially be after Christmas. So happy Christmas to you, Rock. Throw that back up there. Okay. Aranildo, if you are still around, could I get a message from you in the chat, por favor? Alerts, Match Labs, Spooky Ghost, Streamlabs, Nightbot, Renebot, Rock Raid. Oh, wait. Aranildo, not in there. Hello, Spook. Okay, so Spooky's still in there. She's good. Aranildo is actually not in here anymore, which means that the key was expired. So in theory, I would get a message from them. So hey, holy shit, that is actually working. Hey, that's cool. That makes me happy. All right, let me do. Oh boy, what do we have? We have Ledger, Ledger Factory, Redis, and main.go. I have a gdiff. Not really. Okay. Let me clear out of that. Status. Get diff staged. Is there anything in here that we don't really need? Let's see. That all makes sense. That's our new smarter logic for reading. Cache lesson. Yep, so that all looks good. Redis now passing the key expiration. All of this for the mod time and all that fun is now gone. This is now passed in. Yeah, perfect. Let me go into main.go real quick and tmi.twitch.tv. Go ahead and get rid of that. Yeah. We could make add just a little bit smarter. Just a little bit. Yeah, I think we can make this a little bit smarter. So underscore, or let's see here. Entry ts okay equals l.cache key. If not okay or l.expired entry ts, or if okay or not expired, return nil, effectively. So the thought here is that don't add a key if it already exists and is not expired. So that should help with the duplication side of things, which all in all is not really that big of a deal. And in fact, I'm actually kind of questioning whether or not I want to do this, but that logic is very quick to do, so I think it's okay. I think this is okay to do. Yeah, that should be okay to do. Leader PF, Ledger. There we go. Freaking Jestic. Get status. Add Ledger file.go. Git add main.go. Yep. Git commit. Let's see here. So add expiring keys to the ledger. And I am not going to do that. I'm going to check this out as a new branch. File key expire. Add expiring keys to the file ledger. And there we go. So let's come back up here, make a quick pull request. So this does a couple of things. So number one, extract key expiration to main.go, to move it to config. Let's see here. Add more hydration logic to new file ledger, to not add expired keys to the cache, add ledger.txt truncate to keep file fresh, aka not stale. Anything else that we need to add in here? Ledger.absent now checks both if the key exists and if the key is expired. Add now does a sanity check for duplicates. Need to perf test this. Anything else that I need to do here? And we can write a benchmark for that, by the way. Actually, I think that's going to be the last thing. Hey, Spooky. Wow. Be it some time to smash some face. All right, so let me go ahead and make that. We're gonna drop that into Discord a little bit later. Yay. We're gonna drop that in Discord a little bit later and move that out. I'm gonna do benchmarks for ledger.add. Label, this is gonna be in 2, and write a benchmark for ledger.add to test impact of duplicate check. Yeet. Boop. And we actually finished a feature on stream. Holy shit. What a wild time. So, I think that is going to conclude for today. I will get that PR posted into Discord, and then I will probably merge that PR a little bit later today. But just wanted to get that up there so that people can take a look at the differences. But yeah, I think we'll stop there. So, Spooks, I will reach out to you here in just a second. Need to get some breakfast. But thank you all so much for stopping by. As always, I appreciate having you all here at the lab. I cannot believe how far this bot has come up to this point. I'm so excited to see where we kind of take it, especially as we start going into MVP 3 and we start working on the more like on-stream things that I am really curious to take a look at. So thank you all so much for watching. Stay curious, and we'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.